December 6, 1912. The Egyptian desert, midday. The sun is merciless, the kind of heat that distorts the horizon, that makes the air shimmer like water. The ruins of Tel El Amarna stretch across the sand, a desolate archaeological site in Middle Egypt that's been abandoned for over 3,000 years. German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt wipes sweat from his face and surveys the day's excavation. His team from the Deutsche Orientgesellschaft has been digging here for weeks, methodically clearing what appears to be an ancient sculptor's workshop. It's not promising, no gold, no intact tombs, just broken pottery and limestone rubble. The kind of site tomb robbers ignored because there was nothing valuable to steal. A worker's spade strikes something solid. Not pottery, the sound is wrong. Stone, but worked stone, not natural rock. Carefully, they brush away sand and debris. A shape emerges. Then color, impossible, brilliant color that shouldn't have survived 33 centuries. Ochre. But blue. A face. A woman's face carved in limestone, painted with pigments that look fresh despite being older than most civilizations. She wears a tall blue crown, the distinctive flat-topped crown of an Egyptian queen. Her neck is impossibly long and elegant, almost alien in its proportions. Her features are perfect, symmetrical, serene. The left eye is inlaid rock crystal that catches the light. The right eye is missing, never finished, leaving her gaze simultaneously complete and incomplete. Borchardt stares. His hands are shaking slightly as he lifts the bust from the sand. Later, in his journal, he'll write, "Suddenly we had in our hands the most alive Egyptian artwork. You cannot describe it with words. You must see it." The bust weighs about 20 kilograms. It's a sculptor's model, not meant for a tomb, but a workshop piece, a reference for creating other images. The artist was named Thutmose. This was his studio, and at some point, for reasons unknown, he abandoned it. Left his tools, his unfinished works, his materials. Just walked away. And this face, this perfect face, stayed here in the sand for over 3,000 years, waiting. The paradox. The woman is Nefertiti, Queen of Egypt, wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten, one of the most powerful women in ancient history. Her name means, the beautiful one has come, and 3 millennia later, people will call her the most beautiful woman who ever lived. The bust will be taken to Germany, standard practice in 1912 archaeological agreements. Excavation teams split fines with Egyptian authorities. It will survive 2 world wars. It will be displayed in Berlin's Neues Museum, where millions of visitors will wait in long lines just to stand in her presence for a few minutes. Her face will be reproduced endlessly, books, documentaries, souvenirs, fashion. She'll become the most recognizable icon of ancient Egypt, more famous than any pharaoh except perhaps Tutankhamun. But here's the paradox that makes this discovery extraordinary. Nefertiti's own civilization tried to destroy her. Not just her body, that was standard practice for enemies of the state. They tried to destroy her name, her memory, her existence in history itself. After her death, workers were sent across Egypt with one specific task: chisel Nefertiti's face off every monument. Remove her name from every inscription. Erase her from the historical records so completely that future Egyptians wouldn't even know she existed. In ancient Egyptian religion, this is more than censorship. It's soul murder. To speak someone's name is to keep them alive in the afterlife. To erase the name is to kill them eternally, to unmake them from existence, to condemn them to a second death from which there is no resurrection. So what did this queen, clearly important, clearly beloved enough to inspire such magnificent art, do that made her own people want to erase her from time itself? The answer lies in the most radical religious revolution in ancient history, a failed utopian experiment in the desert, and a mysterious disappearance that has haunted Egyptology for over a century. Let's find out what happened to the vanishing queen. Thebes, circa 1353 BCE. The greatest city in the ancient world. Massive temples to the god Amuniasari dominate the skyline, structures so enormous that entire modern buildings could fit inside their courtyards. The priests of Ammonius control vast wealth, agricultural lands, gold mines, grain stores, herds of cattle. They're the second most powerful institution in Egypt, rivaling the pharaoh himself in resources and influence. The religious establishment is ancient. Ammonius has been chief god of Egypt for over 500 years. The priesthood is entrenched, hereditary, immovable. They've served pharaohs for generations. They own approximately 1/3 of Egypt's arable land and control 1/10 of the population as temple workers. And then a young prince ascends to the throne and decides to destroy them. The Heretic king. His birth name is Amenhotep IV. Ammonius is satisfied. He's approximately 18 years old when he becomes pharaoh, succeeding his father Amenhotep III. He should be a traditional ruler, building temples to Ammonius, enriching the priesthood, maintaining the religious order that's existed for over 1,000 years. Instead, within 5 years he changes his name to Akhenaten, effective for the Aten, and declares a religious revolution that will nearly break Egypt. The Aten is the sun disk, the physical manifestation of the sun. Not Are, the traditional sun god with his human body and falcon head. Not Ammonius Are, the combined deity of creation and sun. Just the Aten, the disk itself, depicted as a circle with radiating rays ending in hands that bestow life. Akhenaten doesn't just elevate the Aten. He declares it the only god. Not supreme among many gods, the only god that exists. The traditional pantheon, Ammonius, Are, Osiris, Isis, Horus, hundreds of deities worshipped for millennia, are declared false. Non-existent. Forbidden. This is theological revolution bordering on monotheism, completely unprecedented in Egyptian religion. And it comes with practical consequences. Akhenaten closes the temples to Ammonius, orders workers to chisel out the name Ammonius wherever it appears, even in his own father's cartouche, confiscates the priesthood's vast lands and wealth, redirects everything to Aten worship and to himself. Because in Aten theology, there's no need for a traditional priesthood. No intermediaries between God and people except one, the royal family. Akhenaten and his queen become the sole conduits to the divine. All worship flows through them. It's brilliant politics disguised as religious enlightenment. By eliminating the traditional gods, Akhenaten eliminates the political power structure that served them. He creates theocratic dictatorship where he and his queen hold absolute religious and political authority. And the queen? She's not just complicit. She's essential. Her name is Nefertiti, the beautiful one. Nefertiti appears in the historical record from year 1 of Akhenaten's reign. Her origins are mysterious. She's not mentioned as princess before her marriage, suggesting she wasn't of traditional royal bloodline. Some scholars think she might have been foreign, possibly Mitanni princess from Syria. Others suggest she was daughter of Ai, an important Egyptian official. We don't know. What we do know, from the beginning, she's depicted as Akhenaten's equal. In traditional Egyptian art, queens stand behind their husbands or appear smaller, secondary. Nefertiti is shown the same size as Akhenaten. She performs religious rituals alone, unprecedented for a queen. She's depicted smiting enemies with a mace, a pose reserved exclusively for male pharaohs for 3,000 years. In one temple relief, she drives a chariot, controls horses, raises a weapon. She's shown wearing the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. She's given titles that suggest co-rulership, Great Royal Wife, Yes, but also mistress of Upper and Lower Egypt, lady of the two lands. The artwork from this period is revolutionary too. The Amarna style breaks every convention of traditional Egyptian art. Elongated skulls and necks curving, almost feminine bodies even for men, intimate, domestic scenes of royal family life, naturalistic representations of plants and animals, the royal family shown kissing, embracing their daughters, living as humans rather than distant god-kings. It's shocking, beautiful, completely new. And Nefertiti is everywhere in this new aesthetic. One of her temples, the Hwt Benben, mansion of the Benben stone, may have been her personal domain where she officiated rituals without Akhenaten present. The Great Hymn. The theology Akhenaten promotes is preserved in the Great Hymn to the Aten, carved on tomb walls of Amarna nobles. It's beautiful poetry. You rise beautifully in the horizon of heaven, O living Aten, creator of life. When you set in the western horizon, the land is in darkness. Every lion comes forth from its den, all creeping things bite. At daybreak, when you arise, you drive away the darkness and give your rays. The two lands are in festivity every day. It's a hymn to the sun giving life to all creation. Some scholars see parallels with Psalm 104 from the Hebrew Bible, leading to speculation about cultural exchange. But more relevant for our purposes, it's theology that eliminates the need for traditional religious infrastructure. If the Aten gives life directly through sunlight, and the royal family are the only intermediaries to the Aten, what do you need priests for? What do you need elaborate temple rituals, mystery cults, complex mythology for? You don't. Which means the centuries-old religious establishment, with its wealth, its political influence, its control over Egyptian spiritual life, becomes obsolete. The power grab. Make no mistake, beneath the beautiful poetry is brutal realpolitik. Akhenaten is conducting a systematic purge. Closing temples and confiscating priestly wealth, reassigning temple lands to crown control, eliminating the Ammonius priesthood as political power, creating new religious establishment loyal only to him, positioning himself as absolute authority, political and spiritual. And Nefertiti is his partner in this. Every relief showing her officiating, every temple in her name, every depiction of her as equal, these aren't just artistic choices. They're political statements. She's co-conspirator, co-revolutionary, co-ruler. The dispossessed priests watch. The old families who've controlled religious infrastructure for generations seethe. The people who believed in Ammonius, who prayed to Osiris for eternal life, who invoked Isis to protect their children, they're confused, frightened, angry. Akhenaten and Nefertiti have declared war on 3,000 years of Egyptian civilization. And wars, even religious ones, create enemies who remember, who plan revenge. Year 5 of Akhenaten's reign, approximately 1348 BC. A decision is made that will define the Amarna period and doom the religious revolution. Akhenaten announces he's abandoning Thebes. He's building a new capital in virgin territory, land untainted by worship of the old gods. He claims divine revelation. The Aten itself commanded him to build this city. The location he chooses is telling: a desolate stretch of desert on the east bank of the Nile, roughly 250 miles north of Thebes. There's nothing there. No existing settlement. No infrastructure. No strategic value. Just empty desert hemmed in by cliffs, with the river as western boundary. It's one of the most inhospitable locations in Egypt. Waterless beyond the Nile. No agricultural land. No natural resources. Every piece of food, every building material, every luxury good will have to be imported. But it's also virgin territory, no history of worship to other gods. A blank slate where Akhenaten can build his vision from nothing. He names the city Akhenaten, horizon of the Aten. The boundary stele. Before construction begins, Akhenaten marks the city's boundaries with 14 massive stone markers carved into the surrounding cliffs. They're enormous, some over 8 meters tall, and they show Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and their daughters worshipping the Aten. The inscriptions are a combination of religious declaration and political manifesto. Akhenaten swears that Akhenaten belongs to the Aten forever, that he'll never leave it, that this city will be the center of Egypt's religious and political life for eternity. It's a promise he can't keep. Within 20 years, the city will be completely abandoned. But for now, construction begins. And it's frantic, massive, unprecedented in speed. The city rises. Thousands of workers are mobilized. Mud brick structures rise in the desert. Within just a few years, Akhenaten becomes a functioning city of perhaps 20,000 to 50,000 inhabitants, estimates vary. The layout is deliberate. The Great Aten Temple, enormous, open-roofed structure where sun pours down unfiltered. No dark, enclosed sanctuary like traditional temples. Just open space, hundreds of offering tables, the Aten's rays reaching directly to worshippers. It's approximately 800 meters long, one of the largest religious structures in Egypt. The small Aten Temple, possibly Nefertiti's personal temple, more intimate but still magnificent. The Royal Palace, sprawling complex connected to the temples by a bridge, allowing the royal family to move between worship and governance seamlessly. The palace contains residential quarters, administrative offices, gardens, pools, workshops and studios, where the revolutionary Amarna art style is perfected. Sculptors, painters, craftsmen creating the distinctive elongated figures, the intimate family scenes, the naturalistic representations that characterize this period. This is where Thutmose's workshop exists, where, decades later, he'll abandon Nefertiti's bust. Administrative buildings. Bureaucracy must function. The city has archives, where thousands of clay tablets with diplomatic correspondence will eventually be found. The Amarna letters, invaluable historical documents. Residential districts, housing for officials, workers, artisans. Hierarchical, wealthy estates near the royal palace, humbler dwellings toward the city edges. The city is beautiful. White limestone gleaming in perpetual sunlight. Painted walls in brilliant colors. Gardens cultivated despite the hostile environment. It represents Akhenaten's vision, a theocracy where the royal couple are living gods, intermediaries to the Aten, rulers of a new Egyptian consciousness. Nefertiti's city. Nefertiti is everywhere in Akhenaten. Temples bear her name. Palaces have her image. The boundary stele show her as essential as Akhenaten to the city's founding. Some scholars believe she had her own palace, her own court, her own administrative apparatus. One structure, the North Palace, is sometimes identified as Nefertiti's residence, beautifully decorated with garden scenes, bird paintings, images of nature. She's depicted constantly, worshipping the Aten, embracing her daughters, driving chariots, standing equal to Akhenaten in ritual poses. The message is clear. This city belongs to both of them. This revolution is their joint project. The isolation. But Akhenaten is also a cage. Beautiful, gilded, deliberately isolated. The city is cut off from traditional Egyptian power centers. Far from Thebes and the old temples. Far from Memphis and the administrative capital. Connected to the rest of Egypt by river, but psychologically and religiously distinct. Everyone in Akhenaten is there because the pharaoh willed it. Officials ordered to relocate. Workers conscripted. Some true believers drawn by the new faith. But also people who simply had no choice. When the pharaoh moves his court, you follow or lose everything. How many actually believed in Aten theology versus how many simply complied? The archaeological record can't tell us. But the rapid abandonment of the city after Akhenaten's death suggests faith wasn't universal. This is a utopia dependent entirely on Akhenaten and Nefertiti's power, on their lives, on their ability to maintain control over a religious revolution most of Egypt doesn't want. What happens when that power falters? What happens when tragedy strikes? What happens when the beautiful one disappears? We're about to find out. Year 12 of Akhenaten's reign, approximately 1341 BC. Akhenaten at its height. The city is complete, functioning, beautiful. The royal family is immortalized in art, Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and their 6 daughters, Meritaten, Meketaten, Ankesenpeten, Neferneferuiten Tashrit, Neferneferur, and Setapenra. 6 girls. No sons. In a kingdom where male heirs matter, this is a problem. But the family seems stable. The artwork shows them in intimate domesticity, playing, embracing, worshipping together. Then the daughters start dying. Plague. Around year 12 to 14, plague sweeps through Egypt. We know from correspondence in the Amarna letters that a pandemic is ravaging the region. Hittite king Suppiluliuma I complains that Egyptian prisoners brought disease to his kingdom. Egyptian officials write panicked letters about illness decimating populations. The royal family isn't immune. At least 2 of Nefertiti's daughters die. Meketaten certainly, possibly Neferneferuiten Tashrit as well. Maybe more. The evidence is fragmentary. One haunting scene in the royal tomb at Amarna shows the aftermath. Meketaten's body lies on a bier. Akhenaten and Nefertiti stand in obvious grief, their bodies bent in mourning poses. Attendants wail. Outside the death chamber, a nurse holds an infant, suggesting Meketaten may have died in childbirth. The inscription is damaged, but the grief is visible even 33 centuries later. These aren't distant god kings. These are parents watching their children die. But here's where the historical record becomes strange, haunted, incomplete. After year 12, Nefertiti disappears. The vanishing. Not gradually. Not with explanation. Just silence. For 12 years, Nefertiti has been everywhere. Monuments, artwork, inscriptions, temples. She's depicted as co-ruler, essential partner, equal to the pharaoh. Her name and image are ubiquitous in Akhenaten. After year 12, nothing. Her name stops appearing in new inscriptions. Her image disappears from artwork. Her titles are transferred to others, some to her daughter Meritaten, some to a mysterious figure named Neferneferuiten, some to someone called Smenkhare. The last definite, dated appearance of Nefertiti is year 12. At a ceremony recorded on a boundary stela. After that, silence. The theories. What happened to Nefertiti? Egyptologists have debated for over a century. The theories. Theory 1. Death from plague. The simplest explanation. She died in the plague that killed her daughters. Maybe she was sick when the year 12 ceremony was recorded. Maybe she died shortly after. But problems. Why is there no tomb? Her burial site at Amarna is unfinished, probably unused. Why no mourning artwork like for the daughters? Why is her name removed from earlier monuments, suggesting deliberate erasure rather than natural death? Theory 2. Political disgrace. Maybe she fell from favor. Maybe she and Akhenaten had a catastrophic falling out. Maybe she was exiled, imprisoned, or executed for conspiracy. But problems. What could cause such a complete fall for the co-architect of the religious revolution? No evidence of disgrace in the artistic record. She's not depicted negatively before disappearing. Seems unlikely Akhenaten would destroy someone so essential to his legitimacy. Theory 3. The name change, most intriguing. Maybe Nefertiti didn't disappear. Maybe she transformed. Around year 13 to 14, a mysterious co-regent appears, Nefertiti, or possibly Smenkhare. The evidence is maddeningly confused, different names appearing in different contexts, possibly referring to the same person or different people. Some artwork shows this figure with Akhenaten in intimate poses similar to earlier depictions of Nefertiti. A box from Tutankhamun's tomb bears Smenkhare's name, but the cartouche was altered from an earlier name that might have been Nefertiti's. The radical theory: Nefertiti assumed male regnal names to rule as pharaoh. It happened before in Egyptian history. Hatshepsut ruled as male pharaoh, wearing false beard and masculine titles. Maybe Nefertiti did the same. Maybe disappearing meant transitioning from queen to pharaoh, taking masculine names and iconography to rule in her own right. The evidence is suggestive but not conclusive. We may never know for certain. The unfinished tomb. What's certain? Nefertiti's royal tomb at Amarna was started but never completed. Partially carved, then abandoned. No burial was found there. No evidence she was ever interred. If she died in year 12, where is she buried? If she was disgraced, what happened to her body? If she became pharaoh, did she eventually get a pharaoh's burial somewhere else? The questions haunt. Because in Egyptian belief, proper burial is essential for eternal life. To leave a queen without proper tomb is either unprecedented tragedy or deliberate punishment. The silence. After Nefertiti's disappearance, however we explain it, Akhenaten seems to falter. The last few years of his reign, approximately years 13 to 17, are poorly documented. The grand vision seems to be collapsing. The momentum of the religious revolution is stalling. Akhenaten dies around 1336 BCE, year 17 of his reign. He's buried in the royal tomb at Amarna. His sarcophagus, ironically, shows Nefertiti protecting him with outstretched wings, suggesting she predeceased him or her image was used despite her disappearance. The throne passes to, it's complicated, possibly to the mysterious Smenkhare/Nefertiti for a brief period, 1 to 3 years, the evidence is unclear. Then to a 9-year-old boy who will become the most famous pharaoh in history, though not for anything he accomplished in life. His name is Tutankhaten. He will change it to Tutankhamun. And his reign, controlled by advisors representing the old religious establishment, will witness the complete destruction of everything Akhenaten and Nefertiti built. The sun is setting on Akhenaten. The horizon of the Aten is about to go dark forever. The young king sits on the throne of Egypt. He's approximately 9 years old. His birth name was Tutankhaten, living image of the Aten. Within a year or two, it will be changed to Tutankhamun, living image of Ammonius. That name change tells you everything about what's coming. Tutankhamun is controlled by advisors, powerful men who survived Akhenaten's reign by bending without breaking. 2 names dominate. Elderly official, possibly Nefertiti's father, though this is debated. Master of horse, later vizier, eventually pharaoh himself after Tutankhamun's death. Pragmatic survivor who served Akhenaten but now serves the restoration. Horemheb, military general, commander of Egyptian forces. Not of royal blood but powerful, competent, ruthless. He'll eventually become pharaoh and complete the erasure that Tutankhamun's reign begins. These men represent the old establishment. They're going to restore the traditional order. And they're going to erase the Amarna period from history. The Restoration Stela. The key document is the Restoration Stela, erected early in Tutankhamun's reign. It's propaganda, a carefully constructed narrative that paints Akhenaten's reign as catastrophe. Now when His Majesty arose as king, the temples of the gods and goddesses from Elephantine to the marshes of the Delta had gone to ruin. Their shrines had become desolate, overgrown with weeds. Their sanctuaries were as if they had never been, their halls serving as footpaths. The land was in confusion, the gods forsook this land. Claims During Akhenaten's reign, the gods turned their backs on Egypt. Temples fell into ruin if you prayed. The gods didn't answer. Military expeditions always failed. The land was in chaos. Most of this is exaggeration or outright invention. Egypt was actually quite prosperous during much of Akhenaten's reign. But the stela serves its purpose, delegitimizing everything about the Amarna period, framing Aten worship as heresy that nearly destroyed Egypt, justifying the restoration. The stela continues. His Majesty has driven out disorder from the whole land. He has made the temples of the gods and goddesses prosper. He has filled their workshops with slaves. He has increased their revenues. Translation: the old priesthood is back. Temples are reopened. Lands and wealth are returned. The religious establishment that Akhenaten destroyed is being restored, enriched, empowered. The return to Thebes. The capital moves back to Thebes. Memphis is reoccupied as administrative center. The traditional power structures reassert. And Akhenaten, the beautiful city in the desert, the horizon of the Aten, the utopia that was supposed to last forever? Abandoned. Not destroyed violently. Not sacked by enemies. Imagine the exodus, officials packing up administrative archives, artisans dismantling workshops, families loading possessions onto boats. The slow depopulation of a city that 20 years earlier rose from nothing in a frenzy of construction. People return to Thebes, to Memphis, to traditional cities. They reclaim old homes or establish new ones. The bureaucracy relocates. The court moves. The workers disperse. And Akhenaten becomes a ghost town. Some structures are dismantled. The fine limestone blocks too valuable to waste. They're taken for reuse in other construction projects, particularly at Hermopolis across the river. But much is simply abandoned. The mud brick buildings left to the desert. The temples to the Aten falling silent. Sand begins to drift across painted floors. Wind whispers through empty palace corridors. The sun still beats down on roofless temples, but no one worships there anymore. The city that was supposed to mark a new era in Egyptian civilization lasts barely 20 years. Tutankhamun's short reign. The boy king rules for approximately 10 years before dying around age 19. His death is sudden, whether from injury, disease, or something more sinister is debated. His tomb, discovered intact by Howard Carter in 1922, contains magnificent treasures. But it also shows signs of hasty burial, reused grave goods, items meant for others. The tomb of a king who died too young, too suddenly. When Tutankhamun dies without heirs, the throne eventually passes to Horemheb after the brief reign of Ai. And Horemheb, the military general with no royal blood, needs to legitimize his rule. The way he does it, by completely obliterating the Amarna period from official memory. The beginning of erasure. Under Horemheb, the systematic destruction begins. Not of buildings, that's crude, wasteful. Of memory. Stone masons are commissioned for a specific task. Find every monument that names Akhenaten, Nefertiti, or the Aten. Remove the names. Erase the faces. Make it as if they never existed. It's methodical, surgical, designed not just to dishonor, that's common in ancient politics, but to unmake, to destroy not just the physical person but the eternal soul. Because in Egyptian belief, memory is life. To speak someone's name is to keep them alive in the afterlife. The elaborate tombs, the monuments covered in inscriptions repeating the deceased's name endlessly, these aren't just vanity. They're theology. The name must survive for the soul to survive. By erasing Akhenaten and Nefertiti's names, later pharaohs are committing murder. Soul murder. Eternal death. And the erasure is thorough. Remarkably, frighteningly thorough. But not quite complete. Some places are too remote, some chambers too deep, some blocks already reused where names are hidden. Fragments survive. Enough fragments that, 3,000 years later, archaeologists will piece together the story Egypt tried to destroy. The sound of chisel on stone. Rhythmic. Precise. The sound of memory being destroyed. Across Egypt, from Thebes to Memphis to Karnak, workers are being paid to perform archaeological surgery. Their task: find every image and name of Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and Aten. Remove them from existence. Not demolition, that's crude. Careful, deliberate erasure. The method. The process is specific. Cartouches, the oval rings containing royal names, are chiseled out completely. The stone is carved smooth, the hieroglyphs removed so thoroughly that only a blank oval remains. Faces. In relief sculptures showing Nefertiti or Akhenaten, the faces are hacked away. Not the entire figure, that would be too obvious. Just the face. The identity. The personhood. The Aten. Every depiction of the sun disk with its distinctive rays ending in hands is removed from temple walls, stelae, offering tables. Entire scenes, some reliefs showing Amarna family life, are plastered over, smoothed, repainted with traditional Egyptian imagery. It's a campaign of damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory. The Romans will later formalize this practice with specific legal procedures. But Egyptians understand its power instinctively. To erase the name is to kill the soul. The king lists. Perhaps the most chilling erasure, the official king lists. Ancient Egypt maintained chronologies of pharaohs, inscribed on temple walls, recorded in papyri, memorized by priests. These lists legitimized current rulers by connecting them to divine lineage stretching back to the gods. The lists from the Ramesside period, 19th and 20th dynasties, simply omit the Amarna period. They jump from Amenhotep III directly to Horemheb, as if the years between never existed. Akhenaten, erased. Smenkhare/Neferneferuiden, erased. Tutankhamun, erased. Erased. 17 years of Egyptian history deleted from official chronology. When later documents must refer to this period, they call it the time of the enemy or the rebellion. Akhenaten is the criminal of Akhenaten, never named directly even in condemnation. The Amarna tombs. The nobles who followed Akhenaten to Akhenaten carved tombs in the surrounding cliffs. These tombs are decorated with revolutionary Amarna art, intimate royal family scenes, hymns to the Aten, depictions of Nefertiti officiating rituals. The erasers systematically vandalize these tombs. Images of Akhenaten and Nefertiti are hacked out, royal names are chiseled away, the Aten sun disk is removed from walls, some tombs are deliberately collapsed. But they can't reach everything. Some chambers are too deep, some passages too narrow or dangerous. Some tombs are so remote the erasers miss them. Fragments survive, enough to reconstruct what was deliberately destroyed. The dismantling of Akhenaten. The city itself receives special treatment. Fine limestone blocks, the expensive, high-quality stone used for temples and important structures, are systematically removed for reuse. They're taken by boat to Hermopolis, across the Nile, where they're incorporated into new construction. Archaeologists excavating at Hermopolis in the 20th century find thousands of decorated blocks, talitat, from Akhenaten's temples. Puzzle pieces bearing images of Nefertiti, Akhenaten, the Aten. Dismantled, removed, reused with their carved surfaces hidden inside new walls. It's efficient. Stone is valuable in Egypt. But it's also symbolic. The monuments to the Aten are literally buried inside monuments to traditional gods. Erased but also entombed. What remains of Akhenaten after the valuable blocks are removed? Mud brick structures, too humble to reuse. Open foundations. Empty spaces. The desert begins reclaiming the site. Within decades, sand covers streets. Wind erodes walls. The city that rose in frenzied construction disappears into slow abandonment. By the Ramesside period, Akhenaten is just ruins in the desert. By Greco-Roman times, it's completely buried, lost, forgotten. The supreme irony. But here's what the erasers couldn't have anticipated. Their destruction was incomplete in one crucial place. Thutmose's workshop, the sculptor's studio where Nefertiti's bust was created, was abandoned when Akhenaten was evacuated. The building eventually collapsed. Sand buried it. For 3,000 years, it sat undisturbed. The bust inside, protected by rubble and sand, preserved perfectly. The erasers who methodically destroyed Nefertiti's image across Egypt never found this workshop, never destroyed this sculpture. The most perfect surviving representation of Nefertiti, the face that will make her immortal, survives precisely because the city was abandoned and forgotten. The erasure meant to destroy her memory actually preserved it. Why so thorough? The question remains. Why this level of systematic destruction? Bad pharaohs had existed before. Failed reigns were known. But the Amarna period receives uniquely comprehensive erasure. Multiple factors. Religious trauma, Akhenaten's closure of temples, confiscation of priestly wealth, rejection of gods Egyptians had worshipped for millennia. This was genuinely traumatic for Egyptian society. The restoration wasn't just political. It was psychological and spiritual healing from what was perceived as religious catastrophe. Failure of vision. The Amarna experiment failed. The city was abandoned. The dynasty nearly collapsed. From later pharaohs' perspective, Akhenaten's reign was a cautionary tale of what happens when you abandon tradition. Political necessity. The 19th dynasty needed to legitimize their rule by completely delegitimizing the Amarna period. Horemheb had no royal blood. He needed to position himself as restorer of proper order against chaos. Fear of repetition. By erasing Akhenaten and Nefertiti so thoroughly, later rulers ensured no one could invoke their example to justify future religious revolutions. And Nefertiti? She's erased because she was complicit in everything. The artwork shows her equal to Akhenaten. The monuments name her as co-ruler. She can't be separated from the heresy. So she must be unmade alongside him. The fragments survive. But perfect erasure is impossible. Fragments always survive. Remote tombs the workers couldn't reach, blocks reused with inscriptions hidden, the buried workshop with its precious bust, the Amarna letters, diplomatic correspondence on clay tablets, buried in ruins, boundaries steely carved into cliff faces, too difficult to completely destroy archaeological evidence from the abandoned city. Enough survives that when modern Egyptology begins in the 19th century, scholars can slowly reconstruct the Amarna period. The mystery makes it fascinating. The incompleteness makes it compelling. The rediscovery. Napoleon's expedition to Egypt, 1798 to 1801, includes scholars who document ancient sites, sparking European fascination with Egyptology. Throughout the 19th century, excavations multiply. Amarna is explored by John Gardner Wilkinson, 1824 First Modern Examination, Carl Richard Lepsius, 1843 Extensive Documentation, Flinders Petrie, 1891–92 Systematic Excavation, the Deutsche Orientgesellschaft, 1907–1914 Comprehensive Archaeological Work, including Borchart's discovery of Nefertiti's bust in 1912. Piece by piece, the Amarna period is reconstructed. The beautiful artwork, the revolutionary theology, the intimate family scenes, the mysterious disappearance, the systematic erasure, and Nefertiti, the woman Egypt tried to forget, becomes the most recognizable face of ancient Egypt. The final irony, the priests of Ammonius I. They destroyed Akhenaten's religious revolution. They restored the old gods. They erased the names and faces of the heretics. But they lost the war against time, because the fragments they missed, the workshop they never found, the evidence they couldn't destroy, these survived long enough for archaeology to discover them. Nefertiti was supposed to die twice, once in life, once in memory. The second death was supposed to be eternal, irreversible. Instead, she's more alive now than she's been in 3,000 years. Her face is famous. Her story is studied. Her mystery captivates millions. The beautiful one came. She vanished. Egypt tried to erase her, and archaeology brought her back. That's the ultimate irony. The civilization that invented eternal life through memory, that built pyramids and tombs and monuments to preserve names forever, that same civilization tried to unmake one of its queens from existence. And failed. Because when Ludwig Borchardt brushed sand away from painted limestone on December 6, 1912, Nefertiti opened her crystalline eye and looked at the modern world. The queen Egypt erased had returned. And she's never leaving again. Epilogue. The mystery remains. The Neues Museum, Berlin. Present day. Visitors line up for hours, waiting to enter a darkened room where a single sculpture sits under carefully controlled lighting. Nefertiti's bust. 3,300 years old. Perfect. Timeless. One crystalline eye staring through millennia. She's become more than a historical figure. She's an icon. A symbol. The face that launched 1,000 dissertations. Museums fight over her. Egypt has requested her return repeatedly. Germany refuses, claiming she's too fragile to move. But here's what we still don't know. Where did Nefertiti come from? Her origins remain mysterious. What happened in year 12? Why did she disappear? Did she die? Was she disgraced? Or did she transform into a male pharaoh? Where is she buried? Her body has never been found. Why did Akhenaten's religious revolution fail so completely? Was the Amarna period enlightened monotheism or megalomaniacal cult? The questions remain. The mystery endures. And maybe that's appropriate. Because Nefertiti's power, both ancient and modern, comes from ambiguity. She's simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. The most recognizable face from ancient Egypt belongs to a woman whose civilization tried to make her unrecognizable, unmemorable, unmade. She was queen, possibly pharaoh, definitely revolutionary. She helped overthrow gods, build a city, create a new aesthetic. She disappeared mysteriously. She was systematically erased. She survived anyway. Welcome to the Forbidden Archives, where the greatest mysteries aren't the ones we solve, but the ones that haunt us across millennia. Nefertiti was erased from time. Time brought her back. And now she stares at us with one crystalline eye, silent, beautiful, eternal. The vanishing queen refuses to vanish. And Egypt's most successful erasure became its most famous failure. Some faces are too powerful to forget. Some stories are too compelling to destroy. Some mysteries are meant to endure. Nefertiti came. She vanished. Egypt erased her. And she returned anyway. That's immortality, not through preservation, but through mystery. Not through memory, but through fragments. Not through what survives intact, but through what survives despite everything. The beautiful one came. And she's still here.